Okay, colleagues, we are going to start right now. I'm Stefan Trömel, Senior Disability Specialist of the International Labour Organization, and I am also coordinator secretariat of the ILO Global Business and Disability Network. You will all have received the agenda. Here it is again. And before I pass the floor to our chair, I will just remind you some basic logistical issues. I think nowadays we are already, all of us, pretty familiar with these type of meetings. As you can see, we are providing international sign interpretation as well as closed captioning. If you need to use the closed captioning, there's a button called CC at the bottom of your screen, and there you can enable the captioning, and you can also arrange for the size of the captioning. The meeting is being recorded, so people can watch it later on, if for the colleagues that will not be able to join us today. Also, in a specific moment of the meeting, we will be asking a survey to all of you participating in a survey for which we're using an application called Mentimeter. We will give the practical details of that shortly. We're also broadcasting the meeting in Facebook. And finally, for those of you who have come in as panelists, and we have close to 30 panelists, all with a very tight discipline to be followed in terms of their time allocation, because we have just 2 hours and a lot of speakers. So please keep to your allocated time. And please also, to all panelists, put your camera off and your video, your audio on mute until the moment that you will be intervening. That will allow us people to see on the screen just the PowerPoint, the interpreter, as well as the speaker. And with no further ado, I pass on the floor to Pilar Rojas, 2020 chair of the ILO GBDN.
Okay, just checking the sound. Can you hear me well?
Perfectly.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Just checking the sound. I always have trouble with Zoom. So good afternoon, everybody. And as chair of 2020 of the ILO GBDN, I would like to welcome all members to this annual event, this year in a virtual mode, highlighting the corporate commitment to disability and inclusion in times of the pandemic. It has been a great honor to chair the network this year, and I'm also very happy to introduce the chair for 2021, Leticia Novak, who is the Global Diversity and Inclusion Manager at L'Oreal. And it's also my pleasure to especially welcome the companies and networks that are joining the GBDN and the companies that are today announcing their firm commitment to join the network. Well, a year ago, many of us had the opportunity to meet in Geneva for an event that gathered, I believe it was more than 100 attendees. And there we shared our views about how to make the future of work inclusive of people with disabilities. Little we knew then how society was going to look like only a year after. The world is experiencing a crisis of unprecedented nature and consequences, and all possible scenarios have been suddenly overwhelmed to our surprise and to our dismay. With the COVID-19 pandemic threatens all members of society without exception, of countries, of levels. We all know that persons with disabilities are disproportionately impacted, not only deepening pre-existing inequalities, but also presenting new barriers and new threats. Governments and all kinds of institutions and companies in the public and private sector, we are all identifying measures to cope with the consequences of the pandemic. And while doing that, we need to remember the promise of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, to leave no one behind. Our network gathers multinational companies, national networks, and international non-for-profit and disabled people's organizations. And together now, more than ever, we need to strengthen our commitment to make the future of work better than it was before the pandemic, and take this opportunity to rethink the way we work, rethink our workspaces, to implement yet more inclusive environments. The companies that belong to our network made the commitment to guarantee equal rights of people with disabilities at the workplace, and now is the moment to renew that commitment. Our conference today has 5 moments. We are first sharing how our network is increasing. We will hear from 6 companies and 1 national business and disability network. A brief summary. We will have a brief summary of what the ILO GBDN has done this very difficult and complex year. And at the end of the session, as Stefan was introducing, we will have a survey among all participants to get our input on priorities for next year, for 2021. We will then hear from 2 of our valuable partners, and we will have presentation of GBDN members sharing highlights of their work during this year. And we will end the session adopting our declaration, the ILO Global Business and Disability Network, that we will ask all our members to widely disseminate in social media and in our environment. Well, it will be much better to have the opportunity to be together as we have been previous year, but let's take this opportunity of at least be together for a 2-hour session and enjoy and participate. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Pilar. I will now invite first the 6 companies that will that have joined the GBDN or that are about to join in the immediate future the GBDN to make a short presentation. I start with our colleagues from Nestlé. Nico, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stefan. So, dear leaders and members of the ILO Global Business Disability Network, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this forum. Let me start by sharing our purpose at Nestlé. In the next slide, you will see that our purpose is we unlock the power of food to enhance the quality of life for everyone today and for generations to come. In the next slide, I can share with you that at Nestlé, diversity and inclusion is an integral part of our culture and is one of the ways we bring our purpose and values to life. And our values are rooted in respect. Respect for ourselves, for each other, respect for diversity, and respect for the future. We draw strength, innovation, and inspiration from the diversity of our people and communities. And we affirm that living with a disability should not and does not define a person. We are committed to further strengthen our long-standing efforts towards the inclusion of people living with disabilities. And this is why we are extremely grateful to be part of the ILO Global Business Disability Network. Through the network, we continue to learn tremendously from the knowledge and experience of ILO, as well as to nurture the connections with other members of the network who are also committed to diversity, inclusion, and equality. As an organization, we commit to provide equal opportunities for all, continuously progressing to provide greater accessibility for people with disabilities, promote further awareness and understanding of the lived experience of people with disabilities to mitigate unconscious bias and create an even more inclusive workplace. Leverage our Nestlé Needs Youth Initiative, which is a global youth initiative to positively impact the lives of young people living with disabilities, following the 3 pillars: employment, employability, entrepreneurship, and agripreneurship. We're so confident that our partnership with ILO Global Business Disability Network will help us progress on this important topic towards making Nestlé even more diverse and inclusive. Furthermore, contribute to shape a better society with equal opportunities for all. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Niloufer. And now over to Camille Canoë from Suez Group.
Yes, hi everybody. So Camille Canoë, VP Group for Inclusion and Diversity at Suez. Very quickly, Suez is an international group with 90,000 employees and with a history of more than 160 years in the water and waste sector. Suez is working on the 5 continents in the service of a smart and sustainable management of resources. And as you can see here, our purpose is shaping a sustainable environment now. Among the 4 groups' values is the value respect as Nestlé. And that means that we respect all our colleagues, whoever they are, and that we are all respected as individuals. We have a motto at Suez, which is be yourself, be different, and be Suez. So our ambition is the inclusion of all diversities, because we are convinced that because of a diverse workforce, because a diverse workforce is a stronger workforce, sorry, to achieve better business results for ourselves and of course for our customers. By joining the GBDN and signing the charter, Suez commits itself at a global level to the inclusion of people with disability, regardless of national rules applied in different countries. And of course, Suez also intends to rely on an international platform to benefit from sharing good practices. So thank you very much for welcoming Suez, and well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Camille. And now we will see a video from LVMH that my colleague Freihiwat will be sharing.
A prejudice still exists that disabilities and luxury can't go together. Every day, all over the world, LVMH must show that this view of luxury is wrong. It may seem obvious, but it's worth repeating. Talent knows no barriers, no boundaries. People living with disabilities have no shortage of creativity, inventiveness, or know-how. To the contrary, they bring a perspective, a difference, which adds to the diversity of well-performing teams. Recruiting skilled people with disabilities can be an asset to any maison aiming for excellence. We know this for a fact. For close to 15 years, LVMH has fought to reduce bias and prejudices towards people with disabilities. We want to attract, retain, and engage top talents for the skills they bring. We've already come a long way. Last year in France, 4.5% of our group's workforce was made up of people with disabilities, up from 1.8% in 2007. Our efforts are not limited to France. It's a worldwide endeavor. Our maisons have been especially active on this front in Asia and the United States. As an example, Sephora USA has 9% of employees with disabilities in its distribution centers and even 30% in the Mississippi one. We are moving forward in Europe too. In Italy, Berluti welcomed interns and young apprentices with disabilities. Bulgaria held an internal art event in which artists with disabilities were invited to discuss their daily life and art with the employees, to cite only a few examples. Our commitment to better inclusion of people with disabilities in the group is real, and we want to do better. There are currently 1,656 people with disabilities working for LVMH, up from 1,500 in 2018. Our goal is to have 2% of our workforce comprised of people with disabilities. Disability inclusion in the workplace is a topic that needs to be addressed now, because disability affects all of us, directly or indirectly, at one point or another. Some are born with a disability, some develop one later in life, others have a relative, a child, a friend, a colleague that lives with a disability. LVMH is proud to be signing the ILO Global Business and Disability Network Charter. It is a new milestone and an important step on our road to equal opportunities for people with disabilities. The diversity of our talents is the key to the creativity of our maison. It is the key to our ongoing success. Let's unite our differences to achieve excellence.
Thank you very much to colleagues from LVMH, and then we move to the next company, Salesforce. Over to Thomas Franz, Senior Management of Accessibility Partnerships and Public Relations.
Hi, everyone. I want to do an accessibility check really quick. First, I want to see if anyone can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. And then I just want to give a description of myself. I'm Thomas Franz. I'm a 38-year-old white male. I am wearing a dark gray long sleeve shirt, and it is 5 a.m. where I am. And then, yeah, let me get right into it. So Salesforce is a company of over 50,000 people, and we are worldwide. In many countries, it's really hard to tell. A lot of our workforce is also work from home. So over the last year, Mark, our CEO kicked off the Valuable 500 Pledge with committing to opening an Office of Accessibility, which was a new venture that came from our employee resource group, wanting to push disability inclusion and accessibility at our workplace to the next level. And that was in Disability Employment Awareness Month in October of 2019. And I will say on my slide is a journey line over the last year with certain stops throughout the year. And then in November was the actual signing of the pledge for the Valuable 500. So from November to July was the building of our team. We wanted to make sure that we found experts in the space of accessibility and a lot of people that had Salesforce knowledge and also knowledge of different places, workplaces around the world, from finance to other technology companies, to make sure we're getting a good viewpoint of all the different challenges that might come up with making the workplace accessible. Throughout that journey, we entered our second year doing the Disability Equality Index, which is led by Disability In, and which gives us a viewpoint across 12 different points of our organization and brought in 24 different teams. This gave us a good opportunity to see where the gaps within our organization were when it came to accessibility, and we worked really hard to complete most of it. And we still have a long work to go. We say this is a journey and we're not always doing good. We have a lot of failures that we're working on, but our commitment is to become the #1 place for accessibility and disability inclusion worldwide by 2023, which is a lofty goal. It's not competitive. It's to hold ourselves accountable and do whatever it takes to feel like we're #1. That leads us to July of this year, where we were named one of the best places to work for disability inclusion. I always say it's, even though it says that, there's so much work to go around that it is not a stopping point. We tell leadership all the time, this doesn't mean we're perfect and that we can't stop these efforts. We are way far away from being that great workplace, but we are always advancing. In October was one of our big stops along the journey for this team, and we had launched an accessibility support team, making sure that we give more one-on-one support to those that are having platform accessibility needs, from our employees to our customers, from those out into the community. And another thing to note, that during this journey, we had launched a workforce development program. And I always encourage companies to look inside and not just try to find ways to hire people internally, but ways to be able to utilize your platforms in your workplaces to find more jobs anywhere in the world. And so we do that by using our Salesforce certification, which means that anybody that learns about our platform can run our platform at any company worldwide. And we try to work with nonprofits to give them the knowledge to run those certifications and help people find jobs. We also furthered our commitment, similar to the Valuable 500 pledge. Disability In has a CEO coalition pledge, which is having CEOs commit to disability inclusion through a few different commitments, which is bringing disability inclusion to the workplace and their board, and also having their investors commit to that. And all of this leads to, we want to make sure that we're just not US centric. A lot of tech companies are still into looking at things from the US mindset, and getting into the international space was a huge part of our goals, probably the #1 goal for our team this year. And ILO GBDN was the most important to me. I think that the 4 that I wanted to make sure that we were hitting first was ILO, Business Disability Forum, Purple Space, and the Valuable 500. And I think we did a pretty good job checking those boxes, and we will only further that commitment. So I'm happy to be here today. I told everybody working and my team and leadership especially, they were excited for me to be here today to prepare and follow that charter, and just excited to be a part of this and see where we go from here.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And then without further ado, over to Dina York from Schneider Electric.
Hello, hopefully you can hear me. I am very excited to be here. We're excited to be joining the Global Business Disability Network. We hope to be finalizing that this month. Just to give a little bit about Schneider Electric, we are multinational company spreading across the globe, over 100 different countries with 135,000 employees spread pretty evenly around the world. We are a leader in the energy and automation digital solutions for energy and sustainability. And part of our D&I ambition is to ensure that everyone everywhere has equal opportunities, and that our employees feel uniquely safe, uniquely valued and safe to contribute their best. And our strategy is really focused on ensuring that our diversities are, that there's inclusion for all diversities. And today, working with the ILO and joining this group, we're really taking our commitment to people with disabilities and making that a global commitment, because we're going to be leveraging the work that is being done in various countries around the world, but really bringing a global focus. And we're hoping by being part of this global network that we'll be able to learn and share and really drive this inclusion for all diversities, specifically people with disabilities. So again, we're very excited to be part of this organization, and look forward to starting this journey with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dina. And now over to colleagues from Soprasteria, Consuelo Benicourt and Sophie Florence. Consuelo, Sophie, we cannot hear you. I know you were connected, but I cannot hear you now.
Okay. Did you hear me?
Now
yes?
It's okay. Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Consuelo Benicourt, CSR Director from Soprasteria. We are very proud to join the ILO Chapter. Soprasteria is an international digital company with 46,000 employees over 25 countries. We have been involved in disability for many years, and we have 3 main commitments, which are to encourage recruitment and employability of disabled employees, to promote their independence and autonomy at work, to train and aware to reduce bias each year for all employees. And these commitments are driven by concrete action in order to change the way we look at disability, with a training and awareness campaign for all employees, to make life easier for our disabled employees at work, to innovate for good with mobilization of all employees to develop innovative digital projects. We launch each 2 years an innovation award, and we mobilize all the employees to bring out innovative projects. And the last one is to facilitate access to higher education of students with academic support, scholarship, I don't have my video, sponsorship also. And we are convinced that as a digital company, we have a role to play in promoting the inclusion of disabled people and facilitate their autonomy in our society. And joining the ILO, it's a real opportunity for us to exchange experiences and also to share good practices on all the geography where we are and shift the line together. And that's all. Thank you for your welcoming, Soprasteria.
Thank you very much, Consuelo. So 6 new companies joining us this year, which is such a complicated year. So that's really great news and great welcome to all of you. Last new member, as you know, the Global Business Disability Network does not only include large global companies as well as development NGOs, and we hear from some of them, but we also include, very importantly, national business and disability networks. And therefore, it's a great pleasure to be able to hear about the very recently launched network. It will not be by Stephen Obido, but will be by his colleague, William Valdera. So William, over to you.
Thank you. It is Stephen who is in.
Oh. We can hear you well.
Okay, this is Stephen Obido.
Sorry, Stephen, sorry.
Yes, from the Federation of Kenya Employers. And we are hosting the Kenya Disability Business and Disability Network. We are proud that we launched the network just a few days ago on 19th of November. During
Stephen, I think we've lost you for a moment.
Are you seeing me?
Now I can hear you well.
Okay, good. If you hear me, work on 19th of November, just during our annual employers conference, and I want to appreciate the Global Business and Disability Network Chair, Ms. Pilar, for gracing our event. It was a really successful event. As we seek to empower employers in Kenya to become more disability confident, we ask that the Global Business and Disability Network will continue to support our journey by giving us our really much needed advice on how we go about the issues and how we handle the journey. And that global employers with the presence in Kenya will join our cause and support us in this endeavor. We are really, really much committed to ensuring that we push and promote the issues of inclusivity and see more and more people with disability joining the labor market, joining formal modern employment at all levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's particularly to be congratulated that in such a complicated year, the Federation of Kenya Employers has found the commitment and the energy to promote this network. Huge congratulations for that. And again, a proof that persons with disabilities can also work in the private sector in low and middle income countries. I think that's very important. So huge kudos to our colleagues from Kenya. So this brings to an end the first session of the conference, where we've welcomed new members to the Global Business and Disability Network. We have now a second session where we will be very briefly presenting our main activities in this complicated year. You will allow me to start myself with a very telegraphic presentation of some of the issues that we have addressed this year, and then we will have two of our external collaborators, Francis West and Susan Scott Parker, will present specific initiatives that they are leading with us. So first, we have you'll remember that we organized a number of webinars throughout the year, sometimes on our own, sometimes in partnership. We did one with Valuable 500. We did one very early on in March when we were still sort of trying to sort out what to do in this new context. It was trying to strong focus on telework. We've done a recent one where we looked at resources which are particularly relevant for small and medium enterprises. We did that with our colleagues from Sightsavers, etc., etc. So a lot of events. I think you will agree with me that this has been a year full of webinars, even with sometimes one felt that we were a bit overloaded with too many webinars. But we made our humble contribution to that inflation of webinars, trying always to raise the visibility of persons with disabilities in the current context. We felt that that was an important issue. We did a survey over the summer. We did a survey among national business disability networks to find out what were the responses both of networks as well as their members to the pandemic. I think we used that information to signal to all relevant stakeholders that more support was needed also for companies in order to be able to ensure their continuous commitment to the employment of persons with disabilities. We are building on the report that we launched last November on making the future of work inclusive of persons with disabilities. When looking at that report, many of the recommendations of that report seem relevant, but it was still quite striking that we had not paid so much attention to the issue of the digital economy. Now digital economy, digitalization are the keywords that come out of every meeting that speaks about COVID-19. It was one of the keywords also at the conference that the Federation of Kenyan Employers organized recently. So we decided, because of that, with the same partners with whom we did the publication in November last year, to zoom in on digital economy and try to come up with recommendations and proposals on how to make sure that this wave of digitalization leads also to more and better jobs for persons with disabilities. You will hear more about the next point, neurodiversity. We have signed a kind agreement with the UK Business Disability Forum to have access to a toolkit that they have produced on neurodiversity. And that toolkit is now, thanks to that agreement, will be made available to all interested GBDN members. We will be organizing a webinar on that early next year to provide more information on that. And finally, we organized, I think, a webinar that attracted a lot of attention, where we looked at the intersection between Black Lives Matter and persons with disabilities. And we did that in partnership with our colleagues from Global Impact, the company that Deborah Rue leads. And finally, I want to draw your attention again, perhaps you have not paid so much attention to this, which is a new website that we launched a couple of months ago, connected to the ILO Global Business Disability Network. It's basically a website through which we want to challenge the stigma and prejudice that still too often persons with disabilities face. And we heard about that in the video also from LVMH. No? We think that, especially in the current context, the stigma and prejudice that, for instance, sometimes means that persons with disabilities are not seen to be employable or will not be delivering at the same level as others. These have, of course, particularly challenges and risks, especially in the current context. And that's why we decided to come up with this website. It includes a good number of short videos that try really to challenge the sometimes widely held negative perceptions and persons with disabilities. We think that this is a useful tool that we can use, all of us, to promote this change in the mental attitude to persons with disabilities. So please feel free to visit this website and to share some of the videos that we have collected there. We have done a very careful filtering of videos that we thought were particularly relevant in the current context. So this is, in a nutshell, some of the things that we've done in this particularly complicated year with, of course, a very strong focus on the pandemic. And now I would like to pass on the floor to Frances West, who is the founder of Frances West Co. and who is working with us on the issue of digital accessibility. Frances, the floor over to you.
Thank you, Stefan. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Digital Accessibility Engagement Initiative to this group of esteemed business and also government and nonprofit leaders. My name is Frances West, and I'm founder of Frances West Co. And my connection with GBDN actually stemmed from my work when I was at IBM, heading up the accessibility organization. This initiative actually came about around midsummer, and in view of the technology impact on all of us, especially in the workplace. On the second chart, please, Stefan. So we set out to really begin to organize some thinkings and also perspective around digital inclusion. In this case, we're talking about technology impact on the workplace and how it affects, for example, people with disabilities, not just their hiring, but productivity and also progression in their career in an organization. And the objective of this particular initiative really is also to begin to point out in a kind of organized way the universality and also intersectionality of digital inclusion and how it applies to other constituencies, whether it's race or religion or gender and so on. And last but not the least is really begin to think about digital inclusion or digital accessibility as a organization transformational initiative and be able to create some value proposition kind of a presentation to our senior executives, especially at the C-suite level, so they understand the impact of investing in digital accessibility is not just for people with disability, but for all. And the methodology we chose to use is really actually taking a very organic, pulse, what I call the pulse survey, because we feel that it is actually very important to understand our GDBN members' readiness and also, frankly, where they are on the journey, because that way we can really articulate and also project out a better and more meaningful steps to achieve the end goal. And also this will give us a way to find out where we can meet them where they are. And we also apply this authentic inclusion framework, which we use at Frances West Co. to help our clients to organize, again, like I mentioned, an organization approach to operationalize digital inclusion. So the intent is that after this kind of a pulse survey that we will gather up some of the observation along with some of the learning and experience we have gained from working with other clients and present back to the members a report. And first, I want to thank some of the members that participated in this pulse interviews, because we started the project in the midsummer, so the scheduling is very challenging. We weren't able to get to all of them, but most of them. For those who participated, I thank you again for your generous time and effort in participating in this initiative. So the next chart will give you a sense of when I talked about the authentic inclusion in action strategy framework. What we did was that we kind of organized the organization into what I call the 6-step process. And behind each of these E's, there's 6 E's: embrace, envision, and act, enlist, enable, and ensure. They're questions that we ask of the members, and to help organize, again, the thinking and also the understanding of this digital inclusion journey. We know that in many companies, we actually have CEO has come out openly embrace the topic of inclusion, especially in this case, we're talking about people with disabilities, that also have a vision plan. But do they have, for example, governance or a process in place in their, for example, procurement, or even in, for example, the merger and acquisition business activities? These are the kind of questions we ask under the ENACT. We also ask questions like, enlist? Do they have resources in place? Are they putting where the money, where their mouth is? That is, in order for digital inclusion, in this case, a technology decision to really take hold and also be meaningful, are they giving the team the right resources and enlist the help, both financial and also human resource, to enable this implementation? Are they enabling their team in terms of a knowledge or skills acquisition? Are they training, for example, not just one or two accessibility experts, but really have a systemic way of trying to get all their, not just developers, but designers and implementers, project managers, to really understand the digital inclusion or digital accessibility standards and principles? And last but not the least, do they have measurements? Now, the measurements can actually vary, depends on where you are in this digital transformation journey, and not every company has the same kind of measurements. But nevertheless, if we're going to have digital inclusion or digital accessibility as a technology initiative and also as a transformation initiative, we really have to treat it as a business imperative and also put in place meaningful measurement that's really in line with what the journey and where the journey has been for each of the companies. So it is with this methodology that we went forward and interviewed some of our participants. And these are just some key highlights, and obviously there's more insights that will be documented in the document. So I hope that when the document comes out, that you all will take a look. But at the very top level, what we have found already is that many top leaders, especially C-suites or CEOs, they get inclusion, but not digital inclusion. I mean, this is actually the challenge we all face, and the organization like Valuable 500 has done a tremendous job in really getting companies to recognize that inclusion needs to include people with disability. So in the technology side, we encountered the similar kind of a challenge that digital inclusion does not quite make the top of mind of our C-suite executives. And also the whole idea of digital accessibility or as a technology imperative is actually a new emerging topic. And then because of that, there is not a very clear definition of a governance policy or roles and responsibilities. In many cases, what we have found is our GBDN member, especially on this call, a lot of times are tasked with multiple responsibilities, but frankly, with very limited resources. And because technology moves very fast and changes very dynamically, this potentially will create an expectation gap if not addressed holistically or as an organization initiative. And last but not the least, there are many organizations, even though they're global, they are multi-billion-dollar organizations. Right now, they still choose to outsource the digital accessibility knowledge, which is actually it's fine for the beginning stage of implementing digital accessibility. But over time, one would hope and expect that there will be more in-house competencies. Now, the good news is that COVID-19 had really accelerated the digital transformation. It would give all of us an opportunity to engage our senior executive on this topic. And the social movement like Black Lives Matters and Me Too and all these kind of justice and equality movement also have raised the brand awareness at the very senior executive level. So again, that gives us a real opportunity to intersect or inject our point of view about actually when you hire people with disabilities, along with investing in digital accessibility, you actually are creating a workplace environment or institution environment that really enables everybody. So the intersectionality of digital inclusion and people with disability is beginning to be understood. Another good sign is that we have seen that they are actually emerging involvement from the IT departments. And I still believe that in terms of a digital inclusion, it's going to be led by people like yourself who are in the human resources as a core competency to kind of go over the, reach over the aisle to bring along your IT or the CIO, your CTO along. So that's why this project is so meaningful, that we hope that we'll be able to bring back some lesson learned and also how-to practices to help you to engage your CIO or CTO counterparts. And another
Frances, thanks. I think sorry, I need to bring it to an end because otherwise we are
okay. So then that really ends the presentation in terms of you know, moving from concept, and now we are into the plan and design stage. Yeah,
thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for helping us to navigate and address such an important issue. The second speaker in this session is Susan Scott Parker, whom all of you know. Susan has a wealth of expertise on many issues, but in this specific case, she's helping us to address the important issue of workplace adjustments. So Susan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Well, we're continuing, of course, to bring together a toolkit that would enable members to systematically improve their workplace adjustment services worldwide. But in the 5 minutes that I have today, I just wanted to make a couple of observations. We know how complex it is when you set out to get consistent best practice worldwide in terms of making workplace adjustments for persons with disabilities. I do think, and we're hearing this a lot, I know with COVID, that we are seeing, let's call it the cliche light bulb moments now. We're seeing increasing awareness of the need to provide everyone with the tools and flexibility that they require in order to enhance their productivity and well-being. And that actually, I think we're starting to see light bulbs going off, as I say, that actually the old ad hoc compliance focus here, we only do this for people with disabilities, is starting to be seriously challenged. I was talking to a company only last week that has discovered they have a policy which enables them to pay for the adjustments that their disabled colleagues require, but their non-disabled colleagues who need the same adjustments in order to be productive have to pay from their own pockets. And I think there are a lot of people in that business wandering around saying that just doesn't make any sense. So what you see here is taken from our PowerPoint, if you like, on the business rationale for consistent high-performance workplace adjustments. And of course, enhancing productivity, engagement, and well-being leads at the front. Let's go to the next slide, please. I wanted to remind us that we're talking about a whole range of things. Of course, the crucially important IT, technology-related adjustments that we've just been discussing, but it could be as simple as needing an extra snack break, needing a sign language interpreter, lights that give me migraines. And of course, in the context of the pandemic, it's ensuring that we're really alert to the fact that recent research is showing that 41 to 45% of Americans surveyed recently are complaining about musculoskeletal aggravation, pain from working at home in ways that are actually causing damage to their well-being. Next. So I'm optimistic that we're going to find it easier to help our members to get headquarters, the central office, to see that actually the risks associated with the more typical ad hoc processes with no explicit performance standards are increasingly experienced, not just as arbitrary and unfair, but as inefficient and yes, potentially discriminatory. Because only some people in some locations can count on having the tools, flexibility, and access. That actually is what we mean by equal opportunities. And I was delighted to hear the phrase equal opportunities quoted from so many of the new members joining our network. We know business leaders want to treat people properly. That's going to be certainly the story that Caroline and Kate convey later today. But it's about all their people. And so the business rationale for cost-effective, prompt, efficient, predictable workplace adjustment services, I think it's going to be much easier to convey over the next few months. And so I wanted to finish by just highlighting in the next slide. The question for our members now is, what do we need global headquarters, global head office, the center to do and say? And I think there's 5 fundamental areas. What performance standards must global head office require? I think one basic one is we will treat all persons with disabilities, regardless of whether they're defined as such by local legislation, we will treat all persons with disabilities with equal opportunities in mind. So we won't just do equal opportunities in one country, we'll do it everywhere. The next question is, what must head office communicate and encourage if they're to drive this business transformation? And for me, that's where the messaging coming from Valuable 500, from the Global Business Network, from Purple Space, the new messaging, a compelling approach that says this is both a business and a human rights priority, has to come across loud and clear. The HQ needs this to be communicated systematically, time and time again, over the coming years. What can and must head office facilitate? Where do you have to provide the performance standards, the tools, the practical guidance that speed things up? So we've just done a best practice profile of the GlaxoSmithKline Global Disability Confidence Council, for example, because that's exactly a model that we would encourage other multinationals to learn from as they're looking at how you get consistent business improvement worldwide. Of course, what must be resourced and from where? And finally, what behaviors and leadership must head office reward and how? We're all human beings. We need to be recognized for the contribution that we're making, because this is a contribution that enhances business performance while enabling people with disabilities to access enabling dignified and equitable access for people with disabilities to everything that we're talking about today. So I'm conscious of time and I'll leave it there. But if I could ask any member that has a particular interest or story to tell that would help us as we're designing the toolkit, I'd be more than delighted to spend some time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. As mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we are now trying to get a glimpse of what you would think as priorities for 2021. We have identified 6 topics that could be of interest for you. Of course, there will be other topics. These are the 6 topics that we have chosen: neurodiversity, accessible online recruitment, disability inclusion index, standards for companies. They exist in different countries. And would there be an idea of giving some guidance on how these standards should look like? Making telework inclusive of persons with disabilities seems to be relevant in the current context, but also beyond. Promoting disability inclusion through a supply chain is an issue that we have discussed a few times but never addressed. And finally, also something that sounds like very familiar to all of you in the current context: how to make online training capacity building inclusive of persons with disabilities. There are different ways through which to share your views. You can choose up to 3 of these 6 options. One way of doing that is, as you can see on the screen, you can open the app, your camera app on your mobile, focus on the QR code that is there, and it takes you to a page where you can choose up to 3 of these options. You can also go to www.menti.com with the codes to vote, 22, 32, 54, 3. And I think you've also been sent in the chat box a direct link to this Menti application, through which you can choose, as I said, up to 3 options. I will give you 1 more minute to do that, because we can leave the QR code on the screen while we slowly move to the next session. But please take your time. We will take into account your choices as an input to the discussion that the GBDN Steering Committee will have early next year, when we will be together discussing what should be the priorities for next year. And we will be presenting the results of this survey at the end of the webinar of our virtual conference, just before the end of our virtual conference. I hope that by now many of you will have managed to do so. Apologies if not, you can also send us your choices later on my email if for whatever reason this didn't work. I will now move to the next session of our conference, which is about hearing from our partners. The ILO Global Business Disability Network itself, as you know, is a network. We are all partners, but at the same time, we also praise ourselves to have very good external partners with whom we are collaborating, and well, some of them, Value 500 has already been mentioned, and I think even and also Purple Space. So without further ado, I will first invite Caroline Casey, founder of the Value 500, to address her. Caroline, floor over to you.
Thank you. Firstly, a huge congratulations to the new members of the ILO GBDN. It's fantastic to see the family grow. I'm Caroline Casey, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the troublemaker and disruptor behind the Valuable 500. The Valuable 500 is now this historic global CEO community committed to transforming disability inclusion through leading system change and increasing business opportunity. It was founded with the sole intention of providing the missing piece to scale disability business inclusion across the world. It is 100% committed to shaking up this business system in an integrated way. Our chairperson, Paul Pohlman, best known for his work around sustainability, could not have set us a higher task. And he's possibly the reason why we believe in the importance of leadership. To John Amachi's point, leaders make choices, and those choices create culture in the shadow and the light of a leader. And the Valuable 500's job was to find that missing piece, to find a critical mass of leadership and CEOs to scale the work that you guys are doing already, so we can see an integrated system change. We believe that it's only the leadership with your support that can end the categorized inclusion agenda that is so corrosive and leaves disability on the sidelines. We also know that it is leaders, because the nature of them, who can support and scale the great work already being done in the business, so it can be strategically part of the business across the value chain. And we also believe that it's leaders that are imperative for the system change. Now, when we began the Valuable 500 in 2019, it was to be a campaign. And to be honest, we were going to be thrilled if we even reached 500 of the world's most intentional CEOs and their businesses, to having a leadership commitment, a board agenda, to seeing that action through, to being in it for the long game and communicating that to the employees and the public. But I am delighted to say, and I'm incredibly proud, the wobble here in my voice, we're at, as of this morning, 362 businesses, which represents over 13 million employees, and the power of those supply chains of the 4.5 trillion in revenue, 31 countries and 46 sectors means we have something that we have got to use. So we will be moving in the beginning of 2021. We will be moving from the campaign that we set out to do to a capability organization, activating this community, this committed community, to change that startling stat that began that campaign. 54% of our global C-suite had never had a conversation about disability. Well, first, now we know that they have. We only have about 140 seats left in our community. But what do we do from conversation into action? Well, we will be activating this community around 6 key areas. This framework has been designed with our Valuable 500 companies, with some of the biggest global institutions in the world and the disability community, and with partners like the ILO GBDN, Purple Space, Business Disability Forum, Enable India. It is done collaboratively. These 6 areas that you've asked for are leadership, culture, brand, reporting, internally and externally, representation, and research and data. And when we go into the second phase, we will be supported by 3 new entities. One is the Iconic 10, which is 10 of your peer brands in the world to help co-create these solutions that you've asked for and that are currently in development. The second is the System Supergroup, which I'm delighted to say the ILO GBDN will be working with us on, who will set the metrics of change for this community to achieve in 3 years. We are being audacious. We don't have time. And lastly is what we call valuable minds. 500 of the most talented young people with disabilities to intergenerationally design this system with our 500 CEOs. So as I come to an end, I really want to acknowledge that everything about the Valuable 500 is on these key principles. We believe in intersectionality. It is really important in this decade of disruption that we recognize that the disability and inclusion agenda rulebook is being thrown out the window. And it is now about the multiple levels of how a human turns up. 2, we believe in integration, and that is that disability practices are interwoven and infused and integrated into the business, not standalone. We believe in interdependency, and that is the huge collaboration and this network around the world that we have, either locally and globally and across multiple disciplines. And most importantly, we believe in the multiplier effect. We exist here today to provide a space for us to share together, to co-create together, to learn together, to fail together, to take that long journey. And so I want to thank all of you, and just to say for those of you in our community already, the Valuable 500 community has just about, I think, 2/3 of the ILO GBDN members. We have 11 of you left to sign up. And you know that by being part of the ILO GBDN, you automatically become part of the Valuable 500. So just to say to you, I look forward to signing you up, because we, as I said, we're finished on the 30th of January. Your 3rd Insight report will be coming out on the 7th of December. Check it. And then for the last part to say is thank you all of us. And I want to say a big shout out to Kate Nash, who's coming next, because this is collaboration in action. Our Valuable 500 and Purple Light Up will be doing their very best to be completely unstoppable this week. So thanks a million, Stefan. Look forward to hearing from those of you who are not yet part of the community. And let's make this the decade of disruption for everyone.
Thank you a lot, Caroline. Congratulations to all the things that you have achieved in such a record time, and definitely looking forward to close collaboration in this new phase of Valuable 500. It's now a pleasure also to pass on the floor to Kate Nash, CEO of Purple Space. Kate.
Stefan, thank you so much, and lovely to see you. Caroline, we're going to see a lot of each other this week. So I won't spend too much time. I suppose the time that I have with you, I simply want to encourage you to notice that we have now just 2 more sleeps before the United Nations International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And what we are doing is, as you know, a 24-hour global broadcast to really call out and celebrate the economic contribution of disabled people. So a quick recap, Stefan, on that next slide. So just by way of reminder, so Purple Space is, as you know, the world's only network of business resource groups, employer resource groups and networks. And we choose to specialise in the delivery of networkology, which is both the leadership and the content know-how in delivering high-performing ERGs and BRGs and networks as just one of the very central vehicles to drive culture change, as Caroline so spectacularly called out. You know, we often talk about bottom-up and top-down approach to change, and of course change happens in different ways, but one of the things that we are noticing across the world, that where organizations really start to get traction and start to speed up the pace of change, they're invariably those organizations that have set up a deliberate structure, a vehicle to learn directly from their own people through ERGs. Obviously, we work very closely with many of the GBDN members. It's lovely to see so many of you here again today, as well as the national networks. And many of those have become the continent partners of the 24-hour global broadcast this year. So we really value your platforms and your networks to get the word out. And of course, Stefan, to you and your colleagues to use the ILO platform as well as the Valuable 500 platform to get the word out. So on the next slide, just very quickly, as I say, we're running a 24-hour global broadcast. This is a free broadcast. You'll see at the bottom of the slide, let me call that out. So www.purplelightup.org. It's a platform where we can accommodate up to 20,000 individuals, and were we to go over that, then we have plans to make that possible. But the reality is, because of the content content is available for 9 days because the assets can be owned by all those that choose to deliver. We expect that this moment will be a very important moment to help disabled employees around the world, ERGs around the world, together with senior business champions and chief executives, to really deliver against the higher purpose of Purple Light Up, which is to celebrate the economic contribution of disabled people. The reality is, it's our mark of respect to United Nations International Day of Persons with Disabilities. We know so many of you celebrate in different ways, but the reason why this has come about, it's an organic movement. This is disabled employees across many hundreds, thousands of businesses who choose to want to come together deliberately to showcase their talent. To showcase that they want to lean into their careers, and importantly, they want to be part of the solution. They want to support those individuals who come behind us. So we call it a party with a purpose. I'd really love you to be there. It's obviously free. We would love you to grab that link and to roll it out to your own employees if you're able to do that, to circulate it to your networks. I know so many of you are doing that, and you just blow me away. You absolutely blow me away with your commitment and desire to build a really strong and positive and life-affirming narrative. I suppose my last message as I hand back to you, Stefan, we know that disability can be a challenging human experience. And, we do everything that we can to showcase the challenges that we have in the world when it comes to disability. But one of the reasons why Purple Light Up has come about is because it's often been a negative narrative. And this moment where we have together to celebrate the economic contribution of disabled people, we think is going to play a very important role in our mission as global citizens, and led so spectacularly by the ILO to build back better. You can see on the last slide there, just one example of one company, EY, who uses this moment globally to make a really big noise about the work that they do. So Caroline and I, my partner in crime, we'll be doing a live broadcast. We'll be absolutely exhausted. Yes, she's wearing purple, bang on brand, but her amazing leadership as that with all of you and the national networks is spectacular. So if we can help, then we will, but if you can spread the word, we'd be extremely grateful. And Stefan, thank you for this moment, just to give that a call out.
Thank you to you, Kate, for also having us as a proud partner of your important initiative. So we're really looking forward to this 24-hour broadcast on the 3rd of December. We are moving now to the second last session of the conference, which is about highlights from ILO GBDN members. You've all been asked to do it in a very succinct way, 3 minutes maximum. People could say, well, in 3 minutes, I cannot really present all what we're doing. And of course you can't, but I think it's important, especially in this year, that we show to ourselves and to the outside world that disability inclusion has not come to a stop, that it has continued. And I think this is also part of the reason of this conference, is really to reaffirm this commitment, but at the same time also to show that companies and networks and other partners, even in the current complicated context, have continued promoting the employment of persons with disabilities. We will first hear from some of the global companies. We'll hear then from some of the national business disability networks, from the International Disability Alliance, and also from some of our other civil society partners. And let me start with Yves Bruyer, Global Diversities and Inclusion Leader in IBM. Yves, over to you. We cannot hear you, Yves.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
All right. So as Kate said just 1 minute ago, we are 2 days away from the International Day of People with Disabilities. And the theme is building back better towards a disability inclusive, accessible, and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. And I think it resonates particularly well with our recent program that we deployed when the pandemic started to become global. In order to limit the spread of the virus, IBM globally put in place a work from home policy in most of the countries where we operate. In this context, we had to put in place a temporary accommodation process in addition to our standard accommodation process procedures to ensure that our employees with disabilities who normally work at the office and who have workplace adjustments would get the equivalent accommodations when working from home. It was an interesting and complex exercise, mainly because our local and external accommodation service providers were also subject to mobility limitations due to the pandemic. But I'm glad to share that once this process was implemented, we got a very positive feedback from our employees who were involved in this program, appreciating IBM's HR support during these tough times. This is a very effective way for companies to show their inclusion support to their employees with diverse abilities, which I strongly encourage all of you to consider. Should you have any questions about how we did that in IBM, feel free to reach out to me. All the company members of GBDN have my contact details. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Yves. I'll now pass the floor to Francisco Mesonero from the ADECO Group. He's Director of Sustainability for Latin America and Spain. And he will not only, on one hand, he will say a few words, and then we will show a short video that ADECO Group has launched, I think, today. Francisco, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much, Stefan. Good afternoon. From the ADECO Foundation, as every year, we have launched our campaign on the International Day of People with Disability. In this case, based on the defense of equity, empathy, and united. And with the support this year of 258 companies. With the next claim, the social distance when necessary, the distance for the difference, better never. In the one side, I encourage you to share this campaign if it's possible for you. And I wonder if it would be a good idea for the next 3D launch this campaign from the Global Business and Disability Network as an institutional collaborator of this campaign. Anyway, Stefan will show you the video, and Stefan has all the contents of the campaign that I think it could be very interesting for you. Thank you very much.
Nos decían que nos faltaba una primavera. Mira tú por dónde, que nos ha faltado a todos la de 2020.
Y un día te dicen que no saben cuándo volverás a correr por un parque. Y yo no era la primera vez que lo oía. Pero bueno, con paciencia y tiempo, siempre vuelves a correr.
Aumenta el temor de los ciudadanos a salir a la calle. Muchos dicen tener miedo a posibles contagios. A ver, nosotros hemos tenido...
¿Miedo a salir a la calle? ¿Cuántas veces lo he sentido antes de tener ataques? Y ahora todo el mundo tiene miedo, hasta para ir a comprar el pan.
Hola, amigo. Hola, amiga.
No te vemos bien todavía.
Ni te oímos, pero queremos decirte algo.
La verdad es que este año todos nos hemos sentido un poco más vulnerables.
A nosotros también nos pasó en otro momento de nuestra vida. Pero bueno, nos sirvió de algo.
Nosotros esperamos que todo esto te ayude a mirar el futuro desde la igualdad.
Y desde la empatía hacia la otra persona, independientemente de su situación.
La distancia física, cuando sea necesaria.
Y la distancia hacia la diferencia, pues mejor nunca.
Ay, qué pesadez. Tanto distanciamiento.
Thank you very much, Francisco. Congratulations to this very nice video that the Adecco Group has prepared. We will discuss in the steering committee whether we can also endorse it directly and state our support. And also, please, all of you who are interested in using the video on the 3rd of December, it's available both in English, I mean with Spanish with English subtitles, but also, of course, in the original Spanish version. Let me now pass the floor to our next speaker, Don, Vice President, Global Workplace and Enterprise Services at Merck. Don, floor over to you. Don, we can't hear you. Let me again go to the next speaker while we check what's happening with Don. Next speaker on my list is Laurent Ecochat from Novartis.
Hi, hi Stefan. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Laurent Ecochat. I'm the Clinical Development Director in Neuroscience. It is my pleasure to present to you the global commitment that we are making at Novartis to ensure equity and inclusion for persons with disability, and have started to systematically address recommended actions areas step by step in the next years. To realize this commitment, we are developing a One Novartis Disability Equity Strategy with defined actions to enable persons with disability and Novartis to develop and ensure a work environment in which they are valued for their abilities and contribution to our shared purpose and are seen as an integral part of our organization. Our global approach will facilitate cross-divisional country implementation and aimed for worldwide consistency in maintaining the highest possible standards. Our multi-year approach is evidence-based and human rights-centric. Our strategy is created with our employees with disabilities as well as our employee resource group. We are in close collaboration with external partners and subject matter experts such as the GBDN and the Center for Disability Integration at University St. Gallen in Switzerland, where we, together with other companies, participate in a 3-year Inclusion Champions project to effectively design and implement interventions to drive disability in the workplace. Why we are building a global approach? Because we recognize we have done a lot at local basis, but we haven't had a company-wide approach yet. So we are now working on an enterprise-wide commitment based on our global values and the standards we expect across the workplace. We establish a global commitment to disability inclusion. This is our next step on our journey to address diversity and inclusion across the organization and aligns to the commitment in our code of ethics. We want to create a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment that treats all our associates with dignity and respect. We want to educate our people on inclusivity and provide all our associates with equal opportunities to contribute to our company and advance their careers. And we listen to different communities with a learning mindset to do what we can to contribute to build a world that is safer and more inclusive. And what does our commitment include? Following a sequence to 1, inform, 2, involve, and 3, include our associates to drive disability inclusion. As an organization, we will develop global and local standards and practices that ensure non-discrimination of people with disability. We will evaluate the company disability inclusion practices regularly to assess effectiveness. We plan for country-level support for the integration of persons with disabilities, for instance, in their job design, flexibility, and work environment. We ensure equal treatment and opportunities in our recruitment process at work. We respect confidentiality and data privacy rights. We collaborate externally to advance the rights of persons with disability, and we report progress to all relevant stakeholders, most importantly our employees and internal stakeholders. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Laurent. I think the sound problems with Don are solved. Don, there you are.
Yes, we should be good now.
You're good.
Yep, you can go ahead to the next slide, Stefan. So what I wanted to spend just a couple minutes with you guys today was just to walk you through what our employee resource group, the MSD Capability Network, has been up to. And again, this is an inclusive network that really offers a forum to colleagues with disabilities, their allies, caregivers, family members, to really support them not only with their professional development, but also things that might be just happening in their day-to-day lives. We currently have 11 chapters in the US and 9 chapters throughout Europe, Asia Pacific, and Latin America. Big increase even during kind of the COVID pandemic type of lockdown situation. We have had a 16% increase in membership this year, taking total membership to 627 employees. This group works very closely with some of our corporate groups, such as our Global Diversity and Inclusion team, to really help us with different things we're doing from a compliance standpoint and workplace accommodation. But the bigger thing that they really do is they actually act as corporate ambassadors for internal and external events. Examples of this include education of the company community. We've done programs with a company called Art Lifting, which supports people who are homeless, who have disabilities, to use art to create opportunities for them. We've done traveling art shows across our site. We've worked very closely with Kate in this year as really kind of support for Purple Light Up. And obviously we have facilities around the globe that are making plans for that. And we've also done a lot of work on universal design, especially when we start thinking about workplace accommodations, but how do we build facilities that really are better for everybody? From a talent acquisition standpoint, they've been very helpful in work we've done in college outreach programs, some great strategic partnerships with Sodexo, Best Buddies, and Disability In, and really partnering with IT and some of our other corporate organizations as we really think about how do we improve digital accessibility, both for employees who are working here internally, but also for people who want to access our context externally. From a community outreach perspective, they've sponsored events like tactile carnivals to give everyone kind of an opportunity to understand what a person who is blind might be dealing with in their day-to-day life. We partnered here in New Jersey with an organization called the Milburn Paper Mill Playhouse to put on autism-friendly events for families. And when we do Bring Your Child to Work Day, they have worked to really to make it a very inclusive day for all children and parents. And then the last thing I would just highlight is working very closely with our global procurement group on economic inclusion and supplier diversity when we look at our supply chain and looking to create opportunities for businesses that are owned by a person with a disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don, for this impressive range of things that Merck has been doing this year. And thank you also for representing not only Merck, but also the ILO GBDN later this week in the plenary session of the Conference of States Parties to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I think it's a nice way of showcasing also the work that we're doing to this very important event and to a global audience.
Very much looking forward to it. Thank you.
We've heard now from 4 companies. We will hear now from, I think it's 5 or 6 national business and disability networks that have also been very active this year. And we will start with our colleague from Spain, from Foro Inserta, Virginia Carcedo, who is the Deputy Director on Training, Employment and Transformation of Fundación 11. Virginia, tienes la palabra.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I am going to talk very briefly about our project translated into Spanish, Mujeres en Modo On. We can translate into English, women in own way. And it's important from my point of view because this project aims to support women with disabilities who are victims of gender-based abuse and provide personal assistance in their process of recovering their self-esteem and reaching the labor markets. This project addresses an intersectional situation, the world of today, of vulnerability and discrimination that has been sharpened during the lockdown. According to the EDF figures, women with disabilities constitute 16% of the total population of women in the European Union and 60% of the overall population of 100 million people with disabilities. I think in Spain, for example, we have 1.5 million people with disabilities. So it's a population, it's a percent, a rate of people with disabilities can suffer more problems than the rest. Although all people with disabilities, we know that face barriers to employment. Men with disabilities has been found to be almost twice as likely to be employed as women with disabilities. But women and girls with disabilities are 3 times more likely to experience gender-based violence compared to non-disabled women. We do not have statistically data regarding employment of women with disabilities that experienced gender-based violence. However, to the intersectionality of disability, gender, and violence, it is clear that employment figures will be devastating from our point of view. Some key aspects of our projects, okay? We create awareness and change attitudes, especially through social media and technology. We join forces with all the entities involved to find solutions. We empower women with disabilities that had experienced gender violence. We identify women in this group that might become ambassadors that will play a critical role in prevention, sensibilization. Our professional in each woman define a tailored plan according to their specific circumstances. For example, family, support network, and each woman might have personal responsibilities and work in their process and processes of recovery. During the whole process, there is a compass professional counseling each woman using new START approach and methodologies to support women to give them self-confidence and to self-esteem and eventually to re-enter into the labor markets. The program is aimed at empowering women autonomy, motivation, employability, entrepreneurship. And of course, we are in an event when companies have a very important role. Companies are encouraged to employ survivors of gender-based violence, and employers might be trained to have the expertise and to sensibility to require and to manage gender-based violence issues. During lockdown, we know that there has been an alarming rise, the incidence of gender-based violence during the COVID-19 pandemic. Various risk factors have been found in this situation. For example, alcohol, drug consumption, and other important fact is that women were in formal jobs and they're laid off. So this increased economic dependence not only increased the risk of the gender-based violence, but also makes it difficult to leave the perpetrators. In addition to frequent calls of Compass, Compass are the expert in gender violence and employment of Inserta, was, for example, used the telephone, the WhatsApp, because we try to protect this sector, this woman with disabilities. From the beginning of the project on the pandemic, we attend more than 700 women with disabilities suffering gender violence, and they find more than 150 50 contracts. And from the beginning of the project, in 2017, we attend more than 2,000 women with disabilities suffering gender violence, and more than 600 of them find a job. So I think it's important to bring to life this situation, this project. I think is an opportunity to intersectionality and to protect people and women with disabilities in this problem and this situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Virginia, for this very interesting initiative. Let us now travel to another continent. We go to Asia, to India, and we have now Sarvani Chakravarti, who is the director and convener of the Indian Business and Disability Network. Sarvani, over to you.
Hi, Stefan. Before I talk about Sambhav, as you can see the logo here, I would like to briefly talk about the India Business Disability Network. This network, the IBDN, got launched last year to foster an inclusive ecosystem within the Indian industry. The response to IBDN was very good, with over 80 companies joining IBDN over the past 1 year. And we were in the midst of rolling out different initiatives under IBDN, and the pace was really picking up when we were all hit by the global pandemic. One of the sectors that got greatly impacted in India was the industry workforce. As IBDN, we convened an ideation session with members to chart a course of action to support companies as well as their employees with disabilities. What happened was that we brought out last year a guideline document for companies, which included broad recommendations for organizations to ensure inclusion and support for employees with disabilities during the pandemic. This was followed by sessions specially on digital accessibility that companies needed to put in place, given that remote working was the trend everywhere. This was then followed by, among other things that we did, was that we felt that it was the opportune time to enable many more cross-learnings between companies on how they are dealing with the pandemic. So with the support of the ILO GBDN, we have now put together case studies of 16 such companies who were championing and who have taken proactive steps in ensuring inclusion, safety and well-being of persons with disabilities, their employees with disabilities during the pandemic. We will be sharing a soft copy with the GBDN Secretariat soon. Please do connect with me or the GBDN Secretariat for the compendium. Also, on the occasion of the World Disability Day, the CII-IBDN, in partnership with the NatWest Group, we are launching a new initiative called Sambhav, which in English means possibilities. It is a networking platform for people with disabilities and their caregivers. It is an online platform where stakeholders in the disability ecosystem can share and post their experiences, seek advice and recommendations, and also provide necessary information and resources pertaining to the disability sector. Sambhav is hosted in the CII-IBDN website. So if you visit ciiibdn.com, you will be taken to the Sambhav platform. We are hoping that this becomes a powerful tool that enables constructive exchange of information and resources to accelerate the inclusion movement. Please let us all join this journey to a barrier-free, inclusive and accessible world. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stefan.
Thank you very much, Sarvani. And we moved now to another continent. We go to Mexico, to our colleague Angie Ruiz, president of the Movimiento Congruencia. Angie, tienes la palabra.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Stefan. I am Angie Ruiz. I am the president of the board of Movimiento Congruencia. We are a no-profit business association that was born in 2004 in order to provide a solution to the social labor problem that faces by people with disability in Mexico. Our organization is led by the private sector. In the team board are led by the vice president of human resources of the Mexican company that have an international presence and global presence. We promote, sensitize, and facilitate the social labor inclusion of people with disability in the private sector and impact not only the company, then in the culture of the organization. At Movimiento Congruencia, we generate synergy together with educational institutions and social organizations, and we lead efforts to create an inclusive society in the different sectors. In Mexico, there are about 10 million people who have disability. There is a suggest but non-mandatory quota in Mexico. Now they are more active than ever in our society. However, employment rates are low, and there are still many barriers that need to work about. Business have more opportunities than ever to incorporate people with disability. The problem is that it appears that other vulnerable groups and communities are rushing forward. We are aware of the inclusion in the labor market and in general society that is necessary to break down existing barriers. Although there is already a great way forward, but not enough. In Mexico, we require an inclusive government to achieve an inclusive education. The point is no longer in creating culture and awareness in companies or in a society. The point is in inclusive education, because Mexican citizens with disability are not prepared or supported by the government of our country to do face with this issue. Our problem is that the talent, the candidates of people with disability do not even reach the recruitment process because the larger percent of the population did not have elementary education. It is time that Movimiento Congruencia redefine ourselves to find an even higher purpose that allows us to take a step not only firm, but deep. We recognize that this is a moment when we must become ever more involved with our government to ensure a long-term strategy for this community, to come together to build a collectively more successful and productive and inclusive future for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angie. And we continue moving from continent to continent. And now we go to Russia, and we give the floor to Oksana Chuchunkova, who is the Employment Program Coordinator in Perspectiva. Oksana, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to take part in this conference. I'll be speaking on behalf of the Russian Disability People's Organization Perspectiva and the Business Advisory Board on Disability. I'm sorry that no business company's representative is not here with me today, but we'll invite them to GBDN events in the future. I'll give you some background of Perspectiva and BABD, and then I'll tell you about the first Business of Equal Opportunities online forum we had a month ago. Let me introduce myself. I've been working at the Russian DPO Perspectiva as the Employment Program Coordinator for 7.5 years. I'm totally blind, so I know how important it is for a person with disability to have a job. I'm the International Program Alumni of Overbrook School for the Blind in Philadelphia. I studied English in this program. Perspectiva is the Disability People's Organization with 75 employees, more than half of whom have a disability. An American citizen, Denise Rosa, founded it in 1997. Our mission is the full inclusion of PWDs into the community through various activities, and the inclusive employment is one of our biggest priorities. The Business Advisory Board on Disability was established by Perspectiva in Moscow in 2008. We realized that it was essential to have a close relationship with business companies to provide the inclusive employment for PWDs. We got help of colleagues from Great Britain and the United States. Now there are similar boards in 3 Russian regions that function successfully. Russian BABD is unique. Companies don't pay any membership fee. This network gives companies the opportunity to share their knowledge and experience in disability-related issues. Perspectiva is the BABD secretary. BABD members participate very actively in mentorship programs for job seekers with disabilities led by Perspectiva. We had only one company as a speaker at the first Business for Equal Opportunities forum that was offline. This year, during the 9th forum, we had 10 speakers from companies in Moscow and St. Petersburg, such as Philip Morris, IKEA, SAP, and more. They were both national and international companies. The forum lasted for 3 days, and there were 5 international speakers from England, Hungary, Spain, and the US on the 3rd day. Companies presented their successful practices. For example, SAP representatives told the audience about digital inclusion program. This is 1-year internship program for current students with disabilities. MBS shared their practice of hiring employees with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Companies create new programs. They are willing to share their practices with beginners. There were 250 participants from 20 cities in Russia and the CIS at the forum. There is a high interest among business companies to the disability employment issue. And it's good to know that BABD plays a big role in promoting this topic. Thank you for your attention. We'd be glad to collaborate with GBDN in the future in all aspects.
Thank you very much, Oksana. And now we move to the Philippines, and I give the floor to Grant Javier, Executive Director of the Project Inclusion Network, and who provides the Technical Secretary of the Philippines Business and Disability Network.
Good day, everyone. I'm Grant Javier, Executive Director of Project Inclusion Network and the Technical Secretary to the PBDN. After having been recognized by ILO GBDN last year, we formally launched PBDN late part of January this year, before the pandemic struck. To date, we are now 20 companies strong, coming from different industries and mostly international companies with Philippine-based operations. Thanks to Stefan and the GBDN Secretariat who have graciously helped us to be connected with these companies. As soon as COVID-19 struck the country and the lockdown was imposed by the Philippine government, we knew that it would greatly impact our workers with disability, especially when companies were forced to reduce their manpower and change to work from home. We immediately did a rapid assessment of the workers with disability who are in our pool and initiated steps to further study and understand the situation and how we can effectively cope to the changing times. With this, we launched Enable Opportunities, a program that aims to address the risk of persons with disability getting further left behind in the new normal of education, employment, and community participation with skill development and community investment tracks. We are supporting 150 persons with disability transition to remote learning in tertiary education and technical vocational education, and investing in 5 local disability nonprofits through access to funding and capability building. The groups we are supporting through this program come not only from the National Capital Region, but from provinces from northern to southern Philippines. We conducted surveys and validated them through informant interviews and focus group discussions in cooperation with the national government, particularly the Philippines Department of Labor and Employment and the Department of Trade and Industry, to better grasp the reality of the effects of the pandemic in the business sector. We are also launching a white paper early next year, exploring a disability-inclusive better normal and future of work in partnership with one of the organizations steering PBDN. And if you have Philippine operations here for our different companies who are part of GBDN, please connect with us via pbdn@projectinclusion.ph and join our campaign at the Heart of Inclusion is Us via Facebook and Simply Giving, which we are launching this December 3. When we did our acceptance speech last year, I showed a Philippine painting of Bayanihan, a Filipino value, depicting a group of men carrying their neighbor's house on their shoulders to move it to a different place. That is about being community and bearing one another's burden. There is no other time that is much needed than now, especially in the work of including persons with disability in the labor market and in society in general. As there have been work stoppages in different parts of the world due to the lockdowns in this time of pandemic, the work of inclusion doesn't stop. The work of inclusion goes on. Together, we continue to build a more inclusive society, a more inclusive Philippines. Thank you very much, and mabuhay tayong lahat.
Thank you very much, Grant, and for these nice words. And I move over to our colleague. Again, we're changing continent. We go to Chile, and we give the floor to Rodrigo Carvajal, who is the Vice President of ARRAIN, the Inclusive Company Network from Chile. Rodrigo, tienes la palabra.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for this opportunity to share with you again and tell you some things about our Chilean network. I take this opportunity to give a warm welcome to the new companies, to this global network. The family is growing, and that is very good, actually. First of all, I miss you all. We were used to seeing each other even for a couple of days. It has been a difficult year for everybody, and for those of us involved with inclusion matters, we have not rested. Regarding an activity of our network in Chile, I want to highlight an activity that has been very beneficial and very appreciated by our members, maybe the most important we have done. It's a series of workshops that we call Trainer of Trainers. These workshops train 2 or 3 representatives of each company on topics of interest related to labor inclusion. The topics were requested and chosen by the members. The purpose has been to improve or better understand the needs of persons with disabilities in their workplaces and give tools to the assistants so they can bring that knowledge to their companies and thus implement the improvements in their respective workplaces and train their work cultures too. The topics of these workshops were very diverse, like digital accessibility, inclusive security, inclusive communication, building inclusive teams, promoting an inclusive culture, correct use of inclusive language, etc. And of course, teleworking during the pandemic, which in fact was the most requested activity of these workshops. For this purpose, we have been advised by different professionals related on each subject. They belong to foundations, NGOs, the government for legal issues. Together, we form an expert group of panelists that so far has been very successful. As you see in the slide, each workshop has its own promotion digital flyer. These workshops exceeded our expectation. That's why I wanted to share with you, and that's why I think it has been the most relevant activity that we have done. Thank you very much. Hope you are well and safe. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. I will now move to the International Disability Alliance, who is represented today by Ruth Warwick, who is the first vice chair, and Ruth is usually representing IDA on the steering committee of the GBDN. Ruth, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stefan. It's our pleasure to be here. The International Disability Alliance, a core member of the ILO Global Business Development Network, is an organization of 14 global and regional organizations and networks that represent persons with disabilities around the world. And we are particularly active in advocating for the needs of people with disabilities in the UN system. We're a core partner of Inclusion Works, a project led by Sightsavers to test models of inclusive employment practices and generate robust evidence and data for influencing practices at a national, regional, and global level. And the project is taking place in 4 countries, Bangladesh, Kenya, Nigeria, and Uganda. And it has another 2 years to go. I want to now focus on some of our advocacy work related to the COVID pandemic and its impact on the employment of persons with disabilities that several colleagues have already remarked on. First of all, the huge impact is that many people with disabilities have been let go from work. Various members have done surveys and have a sense that this can be as high as 50% for some, 25% for some other categories. And one of the reasons why this is so disproportionately high is due to the industries in which many people with disabilities are employed, retail, restaurant, service industries, which have all been affected in terms of the pandemic. In terms of new jobs, it's harder for people with disabilities to apply for them because of a lack of in-person process Most of this is being done online and it's often inaccessible. For example, sign language interpreting may not be provided in this regard. And in the workplace, there are barriers such as the use of the face masks that cover the face and makes it difficult for anyone who needs to lip read someone to be able to see the other person's face. And there's also insufficient attention being made to online work being accessible for people with disabilities. This includes the need for support that normally would be provided in an in-person setting. And so I'm delighted to hear that this is one of the priorities for IDA. And finally, I would like to just encourage you all to continue your excellent work in encouraging the integration and employment of people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. I put on my camera just for you to lip read if needed. Thanks a lot for the support and the partnership that the International Disability Alliance has been giving us since the very beginning, and thanks to you also personally. I would now like to pass on to our next colleague, who is Suzanne Bruyer, professor at the Cornell University and also a long-standing partner of our work. Suzanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. And I'm delighted to be here and to see all of the growth in the ILO GBDN. It's exciting, and to hear all the presentations that we've heard from colleagues to date about their various initiatives. I think it's very encouraging. I'm coming today to talk a bit about what we're doing at Cornell University. And it's along two lines of major initiatives, and that is our own work, our current research, but also the work we're doing on behalf of the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, where we manage and staff the Employer Assistance Resource Network and interface with the ILO GBDN, who is a member of our Inclusion at Work Leadership Council, which I'm very pleased to say. So on the Cornell Initiative side, we are working to do a lot of exploration on how to improve workplace disability inclusion around neurodiverse individuals with a focus on autism right now. We have a National Science Foundation research project that is looking specifically at how are people precluded from getting through the interview process, and are there tools that can be designed that would enable people to be advantaged in some way in their preparation, as well as educate employers. And the project is called Empowering Neurodiverse Populations for Employment, and it's a focus on artificial intelligence and how that can be used. But our work has been focused on interviewing autistic individuals, employers, service providers, and career counselors in universities about what they see as impediments in the interview process. With that, we're informing our scientist colleagues about how they should design some tools to help people prepare more effectively, but we're also designing informational assets about how employers can improve the inclusiveness, neurodiversity inclusiveness of their interview process. So we have a very robust first phase report that's freely available on our website, and I've given you the link for that. Secondly, and I know the ILO Global Business and Disability Network, our colleagues at the ILO are aware of this, as we are doing research with the US Department of Labor on career pages and how they can be used to encourage applications and to facilitate applications of individuals with disabilities. And the first informational product for employers, which is available from the Employer Assistance Resource Network on Workplace Inclusion website, which I've given you the link for here, is available. And the checklist comes from a robust study of 40 Fortune 500 companies' websites and what seems to be working and not working. We looked at top leadership commitment to disability inclusion, credible messaging about via authentic media accommodation and supports, disability hiring priorities, flexibility in workplace arrangements, partnerships with community-based organizations. These are the things we looked at as we designed this checklist, which is downloadable and available to you. And lastly, we have research in progress on COVID-19 and people with disabilities. I was excited to hear how much is already being done. I hope we can learn from our colleagues who are gathering information in this area. We've done an extensive literature review. We will do a policy review of US policy and state-specific policy about how to both continue affirmative hiring, but also retention and career advancement in light of the economic downturn that many of our countries are facing. So we will also be doing surveys of employers as well as interviews and focus groups. And we will certainly make these available through the newsletter of the ILO GBDN as they become available, as the outputs from this will all be user-friendly publications designed for employers, and we would love to make them more available much more broadly through this network. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. We're now moving to the last speaker in this session. Please, we will probably go over for 5 minutes or so. Please bear with us until the end, because we would like, together with you, to adopt the GBDN declaration and to discuss very briefly the dissemination. And then we also hear from the incoming chair, Leticia Nova from L'Oreal. But before that, I give now the floor to Daniel Weiss, who is the training consultancy manager at Leonard Cheshire. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Stefan. It's lovely to have a few moments of everyone's time. I'm from Leonard Cheshire, pan-disability charity, and economic inclusion is a key area of our work and focus. I'm going to talk about some examples of our work in the UK just now, but we also work internationally to provide organisations with support. So we've moved to providing training consultancy remotely. We've seen lots of organisations being interested in e-learning and also using virtual classrooms. So utilising things like whiteboards, breakout rooms, people's reactions for discussions, or using video content. So we've been able to provide training to organisations, helping them, supporting them around working inclusively with disabled colleagues. We've been working with a tech company as they launch their workplace adjustment process and supporting their HR teams, and working with an innovations team around the innovations that they create and ensuring they're inclusive for persons with disabilities. Also with our consultancy, we've been working with disabled people through focus groups, so gathering understanding, insight from them for things like a Christmas advertising campaign, also for a report for Expedia, which is looking at good practice within travel and tourism for persons with disabilities. Some of the key areas of support for organisations to ensure persons with disabilities can be included around workplace adjustments and accommodations, of course. So we've been providing employers in the UK with webinars and guidance around making workplace adjustments. And we've also provided webinars for employers in India, Kenya, and Bangladesh as well. We know supporting managers is really important so that they can make adjustments or accommodations. And some employers came to us to ask about how do we do this? How do we perhaps spot the signs that people are facing barriers when they're working remotely? So we're able to give them guidance and support around that as well. We've also been thinking about inclusive working as an organisation, things like hardware and software, but also how we ensure meetings are accessible and inclusive for people, and to make sure that we're asking about adjustments and accommodations as well. So we're gathering those findings around inclusive working together. Thank you for your time, and I hope that everyone has a fantastic International Day of Persons with Disabilities.
Thank you very much, Daniel. We will now move on to the adoption of the ILO GBDN declaration. A special thanks to the steering committee for having helped to draft this declaration. As you've seen, it's a straightforward document. It's basically an attempt to remind everybody that we need to continue promoting and even intensify the promotion of disability inclusion in the current context. And that is what the declaration tries to achieve, and we really need your support. And here we give you some guidance. We will also be sending you an email immediately after this meeting with where the declaration will be attached. There's also a link to the declaration, which is on our website. And here you can see a text which you can use if you want for your social media messaging, and with 2 proposed hashtags. Please add, of course, your own hashtags to this. So that is the declaration. As we are a bit short of time, I won't spend more time on this, but I really would like to encourage all of you to contribute to the dissemination of this declaration as a way of reminding everybody the need to commitment to disability employment in the current context. The next, there are 2 things remaining. One is to share with you, and Natalia, I think you will now share the screen with the results of the survey that we did with companies. So we had 81 respondents, and we should see the result of that, which I don't see. Okay, there comes the result. So we had 81 respondents. Remember, you had up to 3 choices. So the top, it seems that the disability inclusion, disability standard index is top ranking. Okay, that's interesting. We also have a high level of interest for accessible online recruitment and also online training. Not so much interest on the issue of neurodiversity. Okay, great. That's very useful. I will take now back the screen for me, and basically the only thing that is remaining is to pass the floor to the incoming chair for 2021, Letizia Nowak from L'Oréal. Letizia, over to you.
Thank you, Stefan. I hope everyone can hear me well.
We can hear you well.
Great. So, will be a final remarks here from L'Oréal. It was a pleasure to have worked this year as vice chair, and we are approaching actually the end of our 2020 ILO GBDN annual conference. This has been for sure a different conference. We would have loved to be together in Geneva, and who has changed presently. But this is also a way of having the opportunity to be even more present in other continents. We have managed actually to cover a great deal of important topics this year and to inspire our members to move forward on the disability inclusion topics during unprecedented times as such of the C-19 crisis. I would also give this warm welcome to all new members that have joined this incredible network recently. Today, the ILO GBDN members have also adopted an important declaration that reiterates a strong commitment to make disability inclusion a priority and part of the agenda for the upcoming years. We strongly recommend that all companies and organizations members of this network communicate within their stakeholders and partners and to the greater society to make our call to action even stronger. The C-19 crisis, as you know, has showed us many facets of inequalities, and we will not leave persons with disabilities behind. The crisis was also an opportunity to strengthen the ILO GBDN work within its members, and we can see that we are all committed to the same goal by the inspiring presentations we have seen today. I thank the interpreters who have done an amazing job enabling us to be inspired by the content presented today, and the ILO GBDN team to have put this amazing and unprecedented conference together. The ILO GBDN Steering Committee will be meeting shortly at the beginning of 2021 to discuss the priorities that you have just mentioned on the chart. And I wish you all and your loved ones to be safe during the end of year holidays. Cheers, abraços from L'Oréal. Stefan, over to you.
Nothing more to add. I think you finished it.
Yes, I wanted to be short because we were tight on schedule.
Well done. Thank you, Leticia. And I join to the applause to our joiners, and thank you for the more than 100 people that took part at this event. Thank you and all the best.